In our today's lecture, we will talk about the principal skeletal muscles, and we look at all the muscles that are basically forming the trunk, the back, and also the muscles of the pelvic floor. And we will look at the muscles of the face and neck as well. So, starting with the muscles of the face and neck, and before discussing them, we will first look at the image, and we will discuss them individually. So we are going to talk about the orbicularis oculi first. You can appreciate this orbicularis oculi muscle. So basically, as you can see that this muscle is surrounding the eye socket and it is extending to the eyelid, and it has three distinct parts. So if we talk about its origins, then it originates from the medial orbital margin. So it is arising from the medial orbital margin, and then it is inserting into the skin around the margin of the orbit, as you can see. So the action of this muscle basically is to gently closing the eyelids, and as I have said earlier that it has three parts. So it has a palpebral part, it has a lacrimal part, and it has an orbital part. So the palpebral part will gently close your eyelids, and the lacrimal part will be involved in the drainage of the tears, and the orbital part will tightly close your eyelids. So this is the first muscle that we have talked about, and the next muscle that we are going to talk about is the orbicularis oris muscle, and this is the oral muscle. This one was the orbital muscle that we discussed earlier, the orbicularis oculi, and this one is the oral muscle, which we are calling the orbicularis oris. So if we talk about its origin, then this arises from the maxilla and from the other muscles of the cheek, and it inserts into the skin of the lips, and its action is that it basically its action is basically related to the lips. And the next muscle that we are going to talk about is the buccinator muscle that you can see here, and this muscle is basically it lies between the mandible and the maxilla, and it is a deep muscle that lies deep to the other muscles of your face. And if we talk about its origin, then it originates from the maxilla and the mandible, and it blends with the orbicularis oris muscle and the skin of the lips. And the action of the buccinator is that it pulls the cheek inwards against the teeth, and this muscle basically prevents the accumulation of the food in this area. So this is the buccinator muscle. Okay, so the next muscle that we are going to talk about is the masseter. This muscle here, and this muscle, as you can see, is arising from the zygomatic arch, which is your cheekbone, to the angle of the jaw. So this is arising from the zygomatic arch and inserting into the angle of the jaw. So it basically helps in chewing, and in chewing it draws the mandible up to the maxilla, and it closes the jaw, and it exerts enough pressure on the food. So it basically helps you in chewing. The next muscle that we are going to talk about is the temporalis muscle. This muscle, which is really important, and this muscle, as you can see, it is covering the squamous part of the temporal bone, and it passes behind the zygomatic arch to be inserted into the coronoid process of the mandible that we have already discussed when we studied the temporal bone, and when we studied the mandible. So we know the various parts of the temporal bone and the mandible and the zygomatic bone. So when I am talking about the coronoid process of the mandible, so I really hope that you are already familiar what I am talking about. So the action of the temporalis is to close the mouth and assist in chewing. Once again, this is the temporalis muscle, and it is covering the squamous part of the temporal bone, and it basically passes behind the zygomatic arch to be inserted into the coronoid process of the mandible, and it is assisting in chewing. Next muscle that we are going to talk about is the pterygoid muscle, and you can see that there is a lateral pterygoid and there is a medial pterygoid muscle, and this muscle basically extends from the sphenoid bone to the mandible. So the action of this muscle is that it closes the mouth and pulls the lower jaw forward. As you know that mandible is the only bone that can move in your skull. Next we will talk about the muscles of the neck. And the first muscle that we are going to discuss is the sternocleidomastoid muscle. This muscle, and you can feel it in your neck area. This is a superficial muscle, and it arises from the manubrium of the sternum and the clavicle, and it extends upwards to the mastoid process of the temporal bone. Once again, this muscle arises from the manubrium of the sternum, and we are already familiar with the manubrium of the sternum. So as you can see here that it is arising from the manubrium of the sternum and the clavicle, and it is extending upwards to be inserted into the mastoid process of the temporal bone. So it basically assists in turning the head from side to side, and it is also an accessory muscle in respiration. So this muscle is a paired muscle, meaning that there will be the contralateral muscle as well. So when a single muscle, let's suppose the right sided sternocleidomastoid contracted, so it will help you in moving your head to the other side, while if both sternocleidomastoid muscle contract, then they will draw your head towards the forward, or we can say that when both muscle contract at the same time, then they will flex your cervical vertebra to draw the sternum and clavicles upwards, and the head will remain in the fixed position. Once again, when a single sternocleidomastoid muscle will contract, then it will move your head from side to side. We can say that if the right sided sternocleidomastoid has contracted, then it will move your head to the other side, and if the both muscles will contract, then the head will remain in the fixed position, and it will flex your cervical vertebra, and it will also draw the sternum and the clavicles upwards. The next muscle that we are going to talk about is the trapezius, and as you can see that this muscle is covering the shoulder and the back of the neck, this muscle, and this is also a paired muscle. You can appreciate it on both sides. So this is first of all, this is a paired muscle, and this is covering the shoulder and the back of the neck, and the upper attachment is to the occipital protuberance, and the medial attachment is to the transverse processes of the cervical and the thoracic vertebra. You can see that the medial attachment is to the transverse processes of the cervical and the thoracic vertebra, and the upper attachment is to the occipital protuberance, and the lateral attachment is to the clavicle and the spinous and the acromion processes of the scapula. Here you can see the lateral attachment. So the function of this muscle is that it pulls the head backwards, squares the shoulders, and controls the movements of the scapula when the shoulder joint is in use. Now we will discuss these muscles individually. So the first muscle is the occipitofrontalis muscle, which is the unpaired muscle, and this consists of a posterior muscular part over the occipital bone, an anterior part over the frontal bone, which is frontalis, and an extensive flat tendon or aponeurosis that stretches over the dome of the skull and joins the two muscular parts, and its function is that it raises your eyebrows. So I think so in this image occipitofrontalis muscle is not no, it's here, sorry, this is the occipitofrontalis muscle, and you can see that it has two parts. The first part is the posterior part over the occipital bone, occipitalis, and the interior part is over the frontal bone, which is the frontalis, and you can see the aponeurosis as well. And as you can see, it is stretching over the dome of the skull, and the function of this muscle is that it raises your eyebrows. The next muscle is the levator palpebrae superioris muscle, and this muscle extends from the posterior part of the orbital cavity to the upper eyelid, and its function is also to raise the eyelid. Orbicularis oculi, and this muscle surrounds the eye, eyelid, and the orbital cavity, and it closes the eye, and when strongly contracted it screws up the eyes, and we have seen this muscle already. This is the orbicularis oculi muscle. We have already discussed about its origin and insertion, and we have discussed about its function as well. Next muscle is the buccinator. This flat muscle of the cheek draws the cheeks inwards in towards the teeth in chewing and in forcible expulsion of the air from the mouth. Here is the buccinator muscle. Next we have is the orbicularis oris muscle, and this is an orbital this is an oral muscle, and this is the unpaired muscle. This muscle surrounds the mouth and blends with the muscles of the cheeks. It closes the lips, and when strongly contracted shapes the mouth for whistling. Next we have the masseter. This broad muscle extends from the zygomatic arch to the angle of the jaw. In chewing, it draws the mandible up to the maxilla, closing the jaw, exerting the considerable pressure on the food. Then we have the temporalis, and this muscle covers the squamous part of the temporal bone. It passes behind the zygomatic arch to be inserted into the coronoid process of the mandible, and it closes the mouth and assists with chewing. So once again, this is the masseter, this one is the buccinator muscle, this one is the orbicularis oculi muscle. Next we have the muscles of the back, and the latissimus dorsi muscle. This arises from the posterior part of the iliac crest and the spinous processes of the lumbar and the lower thoracic vertebra. It passes upwards across the back, then under the arm to be inserted into the bicipital groove of the humerus. Its function is that it adducts, medially rotates, and extends the arm. So we will look at the latissimus dorsi muscle. So this is the latissimus dorsi muscle, and if we talk about its origin, then this muscle is arising from the posterior part of the iliac crest and the spinous processes of the lumbar and the lower thoracic vertebra. So this muscle is, as you can see, this is the latissimus dorsi muscle, and this muscle basically is arising from the not only from the spinous processes of the lumbar vertebra, but this muscle is also arising from the posterior part of the iliac crest, and it is passing upwards across the back and then the arm to be inserted into the bicipital groove of the humerus. So its function is that it adducts, medially rotate and extends the arm. Here the latissimus dorsi muscle is cut. The next muscle is the teres major muscle, and it takes its origin from the inferior angle of the scapula. This is the teres major muscle, and it is taking its origin from the lower angle of the scapula, and it inserts into the humerus just below the shoulder joint. You can see here, this is the deltoid muscle, and below that you can appreciate the teres major muscle. So it is taking its origin from the inferior angle of the scapula, and it is inserting just below the shoulder joint into the humerus, and its function is to extend, adducts and medially rotate the arm. Next we have the quadratus lumborum muscle. This is a paired muscle, so it will be located on both sides. This is the quadratus lumborum muscle, and this is originating from the iliac crest, and it is inserting into the humerus. It passes upwards, and it inserts into the 12th rib, and together these two muscles basically fix the lower rib during the respiration, and they also cause the extension of the vertebral column, which is bending backwards. And if one muscle contracts, then that muscle will cause the lateral flexion of the lumbar region. So once again, we have talked about the teres major muscle, we have talked about the latissimus dorsi muscle, and we have talked about the quadratus lumborum muscle as well. So the quadratus lumborum is a paired muscle first of all, and it's taking its origin from the you can see that here that this muscle is taking its origin from the iliac crest, and it is passing upwards, and it will insert into the 12th thoracic rib, and the function of this muscle is that when it contracts, if a single-sided muscle will contract, then that muscle will cause lateral flexion of the lumbar region, and if these two muscles will contract simultaneously, then they will basically bend your vertebral column backwards, which is the extension of the vertebral column, and they also fix the lower rib during the respiration. The last muscle that we are going to talk about in the muscles of the back is this muscle, which is the erector spinae muscle, and this is also called the sacrospinalis muscle, and this is a group of muscles lying between the spinous and the transverse processes of the vertebra, and they originate from the sacrum, and they insert into the occipital bone, and their contraction causes the extension of the vertebral column. Next we have the muscles of the abdominal wall, And the first muscle that we are going to talk about is the external oblique muscle. So this muscle extends from the lower ribs downwards and forward to be inserted into the iliac crest, and through an aponeurosis they insert into the linea alba as well, which is this line, and we have already talked about the linea alba. So once again, this is the external oblique muscle, and this external oblique muscle extends from the lower ribs downwards and forwards to be inserted into the iliac crest, and through the aponeurosis this muscle is inserting into the linea alba as well. Next muscle that we are going to discuss is the internal oblique, and as the name suggests, the internal oblique will be lying deep to the external oblique muscle. So they arise from the iliac crest and by a broad band of the fascia from the spinous processes of the lumbar vertebra. Then the fibers will pass upwards towards the midline to be inserted into the lower ribs, and they will also be inserting into the linea alba through the aponeurosis. So this is your internal oblique muscle, and the muscle fibers are arising from the iliac crest, and it will be lying deep to the external oblique muscle. The fiber will be at right angle to the external oblique, and the fibers of the internal oblique will arise from the iliac crest and through a broad band of the fascia from the spinous processes of the lumbar vertebra, and then these muscle fibers will pass upwards towards a midline to be inserted into the lower ribs, and through the aponeurosis they will insert into the linea alba. The next muscle that we are going to talk about is the transversus abdominis muscle, this muscle, and this is the muscle of the abdominal wall. As you can see that it is even lying deep to the internal oblique muscle, and just like the other muscles, its fibers will also rise from the iliac crest and the lumbar vertebra, and they will pass across the abdominal wall to be inserted into the linea alba through the aponeurosis. Next muscles that we have are the levator ani and the coccygeus muscle, and these muscles basically make the pelvic floor, and this muscle is the levator ani muscle, and this muscle is the coccygeus muscle, which is highlighted with green. So first of all we will talk about the levator ani muscle, and as you can see that this is a pair of broad flat muscles forming the interior part of the pelvic floor. And how we know that it is forming the interior part of the pelvic floor? As you can see that this is the sacrum, and definitely the vertebral column makes the posterior part of your body, and you can appreciate the symphysis pubis as well. So this muscle is lying anteriorly and making the interior part of the pelvic floor, and they originate from the inner surface of the true pelvis, and they are uniting in the midline as well, and they basically support the pelvic organs. Next muscle that we are going to talk about is the coccygeus, and this is also a paired muscle, and they lies behind the levator ani muscle. You can appreciate in both diagrams, and they are lying behind the levator ani muscle, and they originate from the medial surface of the ischium, and they insert into the sacrum and coccyx, and they complete the formation of the pelvic floor. And this muscle will be perforated by the urethra and anus in male, and through the urethra, vagina, and anus in female. So that's all for today, and if you have any question regarding this lecture, then you can ask. Thank you so much.